Hello everyone and welcome to another video. First of all, I want to tell you that I want to excuse myself for being very sweaty and disgusting today. The weather is insane here in Sweden. It's like above 30 degrees and that's very rare for Sweden, you know. But I'm having this treat here. It's very cold and nice. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. Okay, so why did I switch from Arch Linux to Debian? A friend of mine told me that it would be interesting for me to make, it would be interesting to see a video about why I switched. Okay, so first thing first, this is my opinion about distributions, okay? The major difference between two Linux distributions is usually only the package manager, okay? So in Arch Linux you got the Pacman package manager, and in Debian you got the APT package manager. So usually that's like the biggest difference between distributions. Some distributions doesn't have systemd, some distributions have systemd. Like it's usually just the difference is usually just the packages that are installed, pre-installed, or that will be installed once you install the distribution. So, okay, now we got that. So first things first, why did I start using Arch Linux from the beginning? Well, this was at my first programming job. I was using Windows at the time. I was a Windows user, and this guy at this office, he told me that like he invited me to some sort of chat application, and he told me like hey, log in here tonight and I'll help you, I guide you through installing Arch Linux instead. So what I did was he guided me through installing Arch Linux on my existing Windows computer, and I was a bit afraid that I would miss Windows. I dual booted, so I installed Arch Linux on one partition and I kept Windows on another partition. Yeah, I think this was the first time for me that I installed Arch Linux ever, so it took a while, you know. I think we spent an hour for me. I think it took an hour or something. So, and then I actually got used to Arch Linux, and I was like, hey, I don't need Windows anymore, so I didn't find myself using that at all, so I just scrapped the Windows partition and I just reinstalled Arch Linux over the whole hard drive. And then I was using Arch Linux for a couple of years, you know. I installed it on the computer that I had at work, so I had Arch Linux at work and at home. And at this time, we were using Debian for the servers at work. So I was pretty familiar with Debian. And then I got my own servers at DigitalOcean, and they were also running Debian. So I was pretty familiar with Debian here while I was using Arch Linux. So, and then I moved to Gothenburg, and I was still using Arch Linux on my laptop. And I'm this kind of guy who reinstalls his operating system a lot. And as you might know, the installation process of Arch Linux isn't always very fun, especially if your computer has UEFI and stuff like that. Now I know there are hardcore Arch Linux users who thinks this is a piece of cake and can install Arch Linux in like under a minute. But I really think, for me, at least for me, it's like a thinking process to install Arch Linux. Like I have to remember all of the parts, like where am I going to do this and which command am I going to use here. It's a lot of stuff to remember, you know. So you keep a lot of disk space in your brain for the memories of installing Arch Linux, if that makes sense. And you know, after a while of reinstalling my operating system a lot, I just realized one day that, hey, I can spend this time on other stuff. I don't want to install Arch Linux again. It's not fun. So, naturally, I turned my head into I turned my head in another familiar direction, which was Debian, because I have been using Debian on servers, as I mentioned. So I said like, hey, let's try Debian on my personal computer and see how that works. So yeah, I scrapped Arch Linux and I installed Debian. The installation process was a piece of cake. You know, that graphical user interface, it did everything for me. I didn't have to think at all. The only thing I needed to do was to uncheck the so it wouldn't install its own window manager, because I'm running i3, as you might know. So yeah, that was a piece of cake. And after that, I've been using Debian for like, I don't know, 1.5 years maybe. And I must say that I don't regret the decision. I don't look back at my days of installing Arch Linux as something positive. You know, I can, if I want to, I can install Arch Linux on my computer without looking at a tutorial or anything. I know how to do it, but I just don't want to do it. It's not fun. I think I can spend time on other things. Maybe I'm just getting old or something. I want to do things that I think is fun. Of course, you can't always have fun, but I choose to not install Arch Linux, because that is I don't know, I just don't want to do it. Okay. Now there are probably like I know there are helpful like installer scripts and stuff that you can use, but I don't know. Debian has a pretty nice installer on its own. You don't need an external script or anything. You just install it and then you're done. So that's basically why I switched from Arch Linux to Debian. I still like Arch Linux, but I just have less problems with Debian, okay? And now there are pros and cons, like for example, as I mentioned before, the Debian is using the apt package manager, and it's a little bit weird sometimes. Sometimes I get like, you have held broken packages errors and stuff, and then I would have wished for the package manager to fix that for me. If the package manager knows that I have broken packages, then just fix it. Why should I fix it? I didn't have these problems in Arch Linux, so that's one thing that I'm kind of annoyed of, I guess. But other than that, everything just works the way I want it to do. I'm running i3 on my Debian installation, and also I haven't had to struggle at all to like get fonts to look good. Like I didn't, right when the minute I installed Arch, the minute after I had installed Debian, all the fonts just looked good. I didn't have to do anything. In Arch Linux, I remember like the fonts in the browser looks weird, and like, I don't know. So I just have a lot of less problems with Debian, and it's a lot of it's also the number of decisions has increased. So I don't know. I'm having a happier life with Debian. But I want you to know this. I want you to know this, that I still like Arch Linux very much. It must be the heat that is making my brain go crazy. So yeah, I'm nothing against Arch Linux. I still like it, but I just prefer to use Debian now, and that's the way it is. So if you have any other questions on why I switched, please make a comment and I'll try to answer it. Maybe I make another video in response to the comments. But that's basically it. That's why I switched. So if I'm going to answer the question with as few words as possible, why did you switch from Debian to Arch? Or sorry, why did you switch from Arch Linux to Debian? And the short answer is I want to spend my time on other things, and I want to minimize the amount of problems I have when I'm using my computer. And that's basically it. So this was a suggestion from a friend that he wanted me to make one of these videos about why I migrated. So I hope I answered your question, and maybe other people which are looking at my channel have wondered this too. So hopefully I answered a bunch of people's questions. So yeah, that's the answer. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And don't forget to comment if you're having any other question about my migration, or if you want to have some Debian tips or something. Just leave a comment and I'll try and answer. So have a great day, everyone. It's Friday today, and the weather is amazing. Unfortunately, I can't be outside in this weather. I'm dying from the heat. It's I don't like to say that because you should appreciate the sun when it's here, but I just can't appreciate this amount of heat. It's incredible. I can't. It's almost. It's also a struggle to be inside actually, because like it's very hot inside as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.